Introduction. Leadership is not about the title on your door. Bringing your soul to work reveals what it is about. We will focus on what it says about work and experience. Stay with me, the best part is near the end. Overall summary. Soul beckons us straight into the swampy muck where our inner life and our work life intersect. How, then, shall we attempt this journey into the soul, and how can we begin to understand soul in our work experience? If a metaphor about your work life didn't come up for you spontaneously, consider what work-related metaphor might be available in your experience of nature. In soul work, the experience is less concrete, our inner complexity shifting in and out of focus. Images at work might speak to you about your life, images outside of work might speak to you about your work. Chapter 1: Work and Life. And how do we go beyond balancing work and personal life to an approach to living that has integrity and beauty? This book suggests a way to engage in inner dialogue about self and work that is grounded in our own experience. Bringing your soul to work, an everyday practice links ideas about soul to the realities of the workplace. How do we face the polarities, tensions, and contradictions in our work settings without succumbing to fragmentation or cynicism? The headline reads, Soul Searching, Looking for Meaning in the Workplace. Where once employees may have looked for meaning outside work, they now seek it within the workplace. Yet many of the approaches to spirit at work feel prescriptive, shallow, or generic. Bringing your soul to work, an everyday practice encourages readers to examine the particular circumstances of their work lives and to construct meaning from their own experience. In this way, the book serves as a guide for bringing one's spiritual values to bear on the dilemmas of work life and for creating something new and lasting. Bringing your soul to work, an everyday practice is for those looking to increase their effectiveness at work and bring more feeling, imagination, and heart into their efforts with others. As we gain comfort with our own inner wildness, the greater our capacity is to navigate the wilderness of work. This brings us to the book's first section, Mapping the Territory, highlighting our interior life as a means for effectively navigating the world of work. Bringing your soul to work, an everyday practice is written with pauses for reflection and specific application. Notable themes of soul relevant to our work here include the journey into the shadowy nature of our inner world, vitality and renewal, the union of opposites, and elements of transcendence. A popular response to the increasing turbulence at work is to turn to spiritual answers. Sometimes, it seems, a common thread in the popular movement is to take the focus away from actual work to take time out for poetry, for walks in nature, for opening to the heart's calling regarding real work, or for praying or meditating with others at work. One gets the feeling that to be spiritual at work requires either being away from work entirely, ironic, or doing a significant amount of additional work, equally ironic. The question remains, dangling for us to figure out for ourselves, of how to bridge the painful distance between our spiritual lives and our work lives. To approach the soul means to go deeper, on an odyssey of self-discovery that connects us to the world and our duties in life. It is in delving directly into the gritty realities of contradiction and uncertainty at work that one is able to bring spirituality into work life. This can be especially difficult in the context of modern work life, with the polarization that has developed between the material and the spiritual, and with the constant shifting of boundaries around our work groups. When there becomes too great a discrepancy between the life we lead and the worlds that collide in our heart, we can experience life and work as flat and superficial. The pull to conform to a singular self and fit in are powerful forces within the work world. Chapter 2: Soul and Work. This book is about the journey inward and the search for outward, meaningful connection in our work. The journey is about ownership of our inner world and the ways in which our inner world links outward. And we do it with an eye toward work, both how we understand ourselves in the context of work challenges and how we might bring more of our inner richness to bear on them. 2. Soul as metaphor for our own personal odyssey, the journey into the darkness of our own underworld. Soul as metaphor for what happens if we don't attend to our authentic selves. The deeper parts of our soul no longer animate us. The soul takes flight. Soul as metaphor for coping with the contradictions and limitations of modern life, holding together the middle between the material and spiritual. Soul as a path to awakening and higher consciousness. Soul as an earthly form of divinity and the rhythm of life. Philosophical source for questions of origin and destiny, the meaning of life. Soul as metaphor for being connected with something larger, a reminder that our lives are not our own. No one knows what the soul is, but tremble forth it does and, as mysteriously, shudders away again. 1. How does one approach the soul? Located in that transitional space between matter and spirit, between a concrete experience and its deeper meaning, soul can hardly be approached directly. In this sense, we can think of the house as a metaphor for the soul, a place where we live in both a private and an interactive sense. This chapter introduces 3 of the many windows to the soul, the windows of our experience, of metaphor, and of fantasy. In each section, we will examine ways to take up the journey in the context of our work lives. Shaken by this new view of himself, Mark struggled to stay focused on the work. Even his desire to do excellent work was related to his need for approval. Released from his idealizations, he was freed to express his strengths in more effective ways and to feel less vulnerable to the seductions inherent in work life. The journey of the soul often begins with the experience of being lost. In this 3-part application, you'll have an opportunity to examine, as Mark did, the meaning of an important experience in your life. The first glimpse through this window of reflection is an attempt to recapture the experience fully, in your memory and emotion. Take a moment to remember it, to reflect on what that experience was like for you at the time, and then take your time as you move through the questions below. Examples: I was asked to relocate, or I had a poor performance review, or someone at work didn't want to work with me. What did you experience when confronted with this challenge? Chapter 3: Experience and Life. The second part of this application takes us to the vantage point of how this difficult experience affected your life. When you're ready, consider the next set of questions. What is the nature of the impact that this challenge had on your work and on your life? How was the direction of your career and/or your life influenced? Examining an experience or event in its meaning for us enables us to fold it into our life story. Remembering both the difficulty of the experience as it happened and the consequent discoveries that influenced your life, consider the following. That is, how does it fit into the story of your life? What are your feelings toward the totality of your experience at this point? As we succumb to this pressure to tone down our feelings or discount our experience, we lose pieces of who we are, and we lose our experience of ourselves. Thus we honor our experience, remembering who we are. Metaphor enables the evocative language of soul, using images in one figure of speech to describe new and deeper ways of understanding experience. At that point, I open to the question of what this image might be saying to me, at a deeper level, as a metaphor of my own life experience. It reminded me to take time to enjoy the simple pleasures of life, to take in the stillness, to build my life with the tools and materials I have, and to be grateful for the course through life that I have taken. Though not straight, it has provided the experiences that have prepared me for my work today. 27 We learn through metaphor that we can shift our attention back and forth at any given time between the concrete and the imaginative. Then, take some time to ponder the experience afterward, giving yourself permission to play with the images. If it's not possible to create an experience in nature at this time, You might reflect on a previous experience and recall some of the sights and sounds, and what was going on around you before the experience. What smells or sensations do you remember? The feeling of touch, with wind or water, for example. You've gazed into your soul through the window of metaphor. Nevertheless, an image that comes to mind at the right time can be comforting, providing a way for us to understand our experience. In this way, an image functions as a kind of container, to hold the experience and make it easier for us to examine it. Point 29. Consider that any moment can be an opportunity for seeing through metaphor. What metaphors in this setting speak to you about your work life? The work setting provides numerous opportunities for attending to ordinary experience in a deeper way, as a window into the invisible world. Try to think of the meeting as a single unit of experience, of which you are a part. What in your observations might be indicative of your role or your work? Be mindful of the use and implications of metaphors. Chapter 4: Work and Experience. And attending to my own personal experience, I asked myself, what part of me wants to criticize this? It was sobering but also liberating, seeing that what I had judged contained something I also envied. Point 32. There is nothing so rich for glimpsing the inner wilderness of soul as ordinary experience, if we can learn to see beyond the visible. We can all learn to appreciate this simple lesson: how metaphor reflects back images of our life in more profound ways. And once alert to metaphors and their power, we begin to notice them more and can draw on them to help us navigate our journey in work life. In this story, the atmosphere had been serious when the conference leader invited others to attend to the fantasy level of the work. Playfulness is especially important for this next application, in viewing soul through the window of fantasy. Without stopping to think, begin writing a story about anything. Before examining your 3-minute story, consider the following. Here are a few questions you might ask of yourself. What child part of you might be in danger, or what might you be killing off within yourself? It may not always be comfortable, but this part of our work is crucial. The ability to take up an observer role is central to the task of soul work. You've had some practice in examining yourself through the windows of experience and metaphor, so you may already know which questions you want to pose. Allow them to affect you. Feel the images in the story as parts of you. Experience the subtleties of which questions have more meaning, and allow other questions and associations to emerge. The observer role helps you to stay honest in examining your experience, to ensure that what's important surfaces. Point 37. Taking your time and referring to the questions you listed. Write in your journal about what you see through the window of your story's fantasy images. If you don't have the opportunity to pair up, reading this may sharpen your awareness for your own work. The purpose is to develop a non-judgmental, observer stance toward fantasy work, and to use another person's fantasies for your own discovery and to contribute to theirs. If a suggestion is not helpful, that's okay, others might be. Now that you've had some practice with fantasy as a window to the soul, watch for opportunities to use it in the work setting. Discretion is advised. Point 39. We've explored the inner wilderness of the soul through specific applications that draw on our experience, the use of metaphor, and fantasy. Thus the story shifts to an inner drama, played out among the character's multiplicity of selves. And that capacity is especially useful for navigating through critical work situations and decisions. These questions point to the ways in which feelings, as specific aspects of ourselves, can drive our decisions and responses in life. The second voice is judgmental, alternately angry or critical of others and herself. Chapter 5: Voice and Feeling. In retrospect, of course, we might understand it, but in the moment, we are blind. This is the work of our shadow material, those parts of ourselves of which we are unaware. Point 44. An alternative, of course, is to find a way to allow conscious expression that feels safe. The voice of the frightened girl is not appropriate in most work settings. In your own stressful experiences at work, which of yourselves tends to emerge? Play with the idea that a feeling might lead us to a particular voice, and that voice is the expression of one of ourselves. A voice may be made up of one core feeling, or it might be the expression of a couple of feelings paired together. For example, the judge might be an expression of certainty and power. Within the feeling of self-criticism was the voice, Cheryl, you've been zigzagging your way through life like this guy, changing directions every couple of years. In this application, we will use feelings as a way to locate the key aspects of yourself that operate in your work setting, by identifying a voice and the words behind each feeling. Note 4 or 5 key feelings and any 2 that seem part of the same experience. Example, small and fragile might come from the same experience, of the child within. Identify one feeling pair that might be good to start with. By allowing yourself to shift into that feeling completely, you are bringing it from the past into immediate experience. Listen for the words and tone associated with that feeling, that is, its voice. He dropped the ball. Shifting out of the last feeling and choosing another, allow yourself to shift again to the immediate experience of this second feeling. Look over the feelings you've chosen to work with and the words associated with them. Be mindful of the whole pattern of associations: feelings, words, tone of voice, physical image. These are, essentially, the selves you have identified as active within you in the context of your work. This technique for identifying active aspects of ourselves through feeling, voice, and descriptions, for example, the competitor, awakens a regard for our inner complexity. As you are discovering the different voices within you, it may be helpful to keep a few points in mind. The different aspects of our multiple selves are there, whether or not we consciously allow them to have voice. For example, giving space for the self-critical voice to speak allows us to get to know it better. See the story of the Little Prince in the next section. Any voice, seemingly positive or negative, can be destructive if allowed to go unchecked. To address the question, consider your own experience. What happened as you wrote in the voice of those uncomfo? Closing. That is the heart of bringing your soul to work. If it helped, a quick subscribe keeps more summaries coming. So how do work and experience connect? That is exactly where we started. Go back to the top and watch it click into place.